The first time I saw my biological mother in 8 years, I was handing out juice boxes at the St. Jude's Home for Children. A line of sleek black cars, the kind that belonged in films, rolled to a stop on the gravel driveway, looking completely out of place against the worn playground. A woman in a cream pantsuit stepped out of the lead car. "Maya," she said, her voice calm but strange to my ears. "I told you I'd come for you once Chloe was settled in college." She forced a polite smile. Her acceptance letter from Georgetown arrived yesterday. "So here I am. I've come to bring you home." I froze, still holding the juice carton. That name, Chloe, meant nothing to me. She exhaled dramatically. "I know you must resent me. But Chloe, she always felt uncertain, knowing she wasn't our real daughter. You, on the other hand, were meant to have it all. We just asked you to wait a little longer for it." Stepping closer, her expensive perfume hit me like a wave. "I know these 8 years haven't been easy for you, but once you're home, we'll make up for everything." She continued, speaking in a steady stream about avoiding conflict with Chloe. I held up my hand, cutting her off. "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely confused. "Who are you?" The scene felt absurd. A stranger claiming she was taking me home when I already had a home, one that had found me years ago. The woman paused, her composure flickering, then let out a curious laugh. "8 years here, and you're still just as stubborn," she said, shaking her head as if she were amused by a private joke. "That's good. Chloe was spoiled, coddled by her father and me. At least I know you won't let her walk over you." Her expression hardened. "But Chloe is sensitive. At home, you're not to mention a word of this biological nonsense. You are both my daughters. Understand?" She waited for a nod. "From now on, you're her older sister. Protect her, watch over her. In my eyes, you are both equally important." The bias in her words was almost comical, and a fog in my memory finally lifted. I knew exactly who she was. Eleanor Pierce. My birth mother. 8 years felt like a lifetime. She was a stranger, and strangers' words carried no weight with me. "Mrs. Pierce," I said evenly. "When you left me at that home, did it occur to you that I might find another family? In the system, a healthy 10-year-old was highly adoptable." Eleanor reached out, aiming for my hair, but I recoiled instinctively. Her hand fell awkwardly to her side. "I spoke with the director," she said tightly. "I made it very clear you were just being fostered. You had parents who would adopt a child who wasn't an orphan." Her gaze was sharp, evaluating. "Besides, you were already 10. Raised in the mountains behind in school, unrefined, practically wild. No one would have wanted you." Her words echoed a memory of the past. When the hospital error was discovered, Richard and Eleanor Pierce had briefly taken me to their mansion. One day of cooing about my suffering, then, because Chloe threw a tantrum, the very next day, I was sent to St. Jude's. It wasn't love that bound me to them. It was blood. And yet they never truly made space for me. I fought, pleaded, screamed, only to be met with disgust. "This wasn't Chloe's fault," they'd said. "She's been here, loved us. Questions about her parentage would harm her." Then came the hollow promise. "You are our daughter. Everything meant for you will be yours, just wait. Until Chloe goes to college, until she feels secure. Then we'll bring you home." That severed the last thread of connection. I walked into St. Jude's and never looked back. I didn't expect Leo Monroe, son of the wealthiest man in the state, to decide he wanted a sister and pick me from a lineup. I was pinning down a boy who had tormented me for weeks when he pointed and said with a wide grin, "That one. She has spark. She's my sister." And just like that, I became a Monroe. "Such a headstrong girl," Eleanor said now, pulling me from my memories. "You haven't contacted us all these years, but deep down I know you've thought of your parents." She smiled, self-satisfied. "Otherwise, why would you have knitted this scarf for me? You still care." I almost laughed. The scarves we made at St. Jude's were a routine thank you to donors. Mine had been an assignment, nothing personal. I had nothing more to say to a woman I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Eleanor, however, mistook my silence for shyness. "You've waited 8 long years for this. You must be overjoyed," she continued, oblivious. "Your father and I have dreamed of this day for so long." She glanced at her watch. "Chloe's graduation celebration is next week. After that, I'll return to bring you home." The director of the home, Mrs. Gable, hovered nearby, glancing for a chance to interject, but Eleanor ignored her entirely. She signaled to her driver, who began unloading the car. Piles of glossy gift boxes and shopping bags were set carefully on the gravel. "And do try to dress properly," Eleanor said, her eyes flicking to my comfortable, dirt-stained track pants and t-shirt. "You look like a street urchin." I looked down at my clothes, perfectly suited for playing with children or tending the garden. A street urchin? Finally, the convoy purred away, leaving behind a small cloud of dust. Mrs. Gable exhaled slowly. "Didn't Mrs. Pierce receive my messages? I sent her the adoption notice years ago." I shrugged, handing out the remaining snacks. "It doesn't matter. She's a stranger to me." Turning to the director, I said, "Mrs. Gable, can we put these gifts in the pantry? The children could use the extra treats." After my volunteer shift ended, I remembered the custom birthday gift I had ordered for my mother. There were only a few elite jewelers in the city, and I never imagined I'd run into Eleanor Pierce at Belmont Jewelers. She was seated on a velvet sofa, listening to the store manager display a tray of diamonds. The moment she saw me, her face brightened with a surprised, practiced smile. "Maya, darling, were you thinking of me? Worried I wouldn't come back? Did you follow me here, to make sure?" I felt a headache coming on. Had she recently developed this habit of narrating her reality like it was truth? I chose to ignore her and moved straight to the counter. She stepped in front of me. "Maya, we need to discuss your presentation," she whispered, almost conspiratorially. "In a place like this, appearance matters. Why aren't you wearing the clothes I brought this morning? Coming dressed like this, it's embarrassing for me. It shows a complete lack of refinement." A flash of anger surged through me. No one, ever, had questioned my upbringing. "My clothing is none of your business," I said coolly. "My family has no issue with it, so why should you? Now step aside. I'm here for a jewelry order." Eleanor's pleasant mask cracked, her expression hardening. "So, you're still upset about being left at the home? We've explained everything. This passive-aggressive behavior, it's unnecessary and ungracious." She shook her head slowly. "You're nothing like Chloe." "Mom," I muttered. A young woman, impeccably groomed and oozing confidence, linked her arm with Eleanor's. "So, this is my sister, Maya?" Chloe's eyes scanned me, her tone polite but dripping with condescension. "I was curious about your school, your talents. I dabble in piano, ballet, painting, not a prodigy, but I've tried a bit of everything." She paused, a thin smile of faux sympathy on her lips. "Oh, right. You grew up in a children's home. It must have been difficult even to get into college." Her tone was perfectly rehearsed, mock concern, veiled superiority. "I don't remember having a sister," I said flatly, looking at the woman who was supposed to be family yet felt like a stranger. "You might want to be careful claiming people as yours." Just then, the manager returned from the back with a velvet-lined box. I pushed past Chloe to reach the counter. She stumbled dramatically, letting out a cry as she fell to the floor. Eleanor's face was frozen in shock. "After 8 years, your temper has only grown. You'd push her before even officially joining the family. If we'd taken you back then, would you have been a murderer by now?" The situation was absurd. They were the ones blocking my path, spewing nonsense, yet trying to claim moral superiority. She stiffened, then I said plainly, "Mrs. Pierce, I was adopted by another family 8 years ago. I came here only to pick up a piece of jewelry, not to find you. My adoptive parents love me. They raised me, and I have no interest in becoming yours." Eleanor's features froze. "Don't make jokes like that. Your mother is right here. There are limits to this kind of behavior." For a moment, I caught a sliver of panic in her eyes, the first hint that she understood she no longer controlled this daughter she had abandoned. Something was slipping away from her. Ignored, Chloe rose to her feet and began an elaborate display of sorrow. "Maybe I don't belong in the Pierce home anymore," she sniffed, tears welling. "I've taken what should have been hers. I should give it all back." She started peeling off jewelry in frantic, theatrical motions. "Take it, it's yours," she sobbed, holding out rings and necklaces. "I only ask one thing, please, let me stay your daughter." Her performance was almost painfully practiced. Eleanor softened instantly, folding into the role of a devastated, grateful mother. "That's enough," she snapped, turning her anger back at me. "See what she's doing for you? Why can't you accept her? You haven't once called me Mom. I've been patient, and this is how you repay us, with disrespect. You've been ruined." Chloe clutched Eleanor's arm, then pressed the jewelry toward me with an expression of pity. "Sister, you probably never saw things like this. Any of these pieces is worth more than you could earn in years. I am not showing off. I'm just saying you're coming home soon. Don't make Mom angry. The implication was obvious. She was painting me as greedy. I looked at the heap of glittering things and thought of Leo, who could easily replace them with something finer. None of it was worth an argument. I signaled to the manager for my package and opened the velvet box. Nestled in silk was a brooch, an openwork spray of gold leaves wrapped around a deep green emerald. I felt a small, satisfied pride, remembering the auctions and saved allowances that had gone into finding that particular stone. It was the best I could give. Ms. Monroe, the manager said, here is the evergreen, custom-made for your mother. He slid the receipt toward me. Before I could sign, a hand snatched the brooch from the box. So it was for me, Eleanor declared, suddenly cheery. Chloe chimed in with a practiced, dismissive tone. Huh, I didn't know they worked with glass now. This looks almost real. She turned to me, sweet and scornful. Even if your gift is modest, it's the thought that counts. My mouth went dry. My carefully chosen emerald glass? Was it so flawless it resembled a fake? Chloe reached for the pin, trying to fasten it to herself. I would not let her touch a present meant for my mother. Give it back, I snapped. They tussled, and Chloe threw a smug look over her shoulder before letting go. My reflexes took over, and I caught the brooch an inch above the marble floor. Sorry, sister. Chloe began in false shock, but before she could finish, my hand struck her cheek. A tooth flew free, and her smugness vanished. Eleanor lunged, hand raised, and I shoved her back into the velvet. It's only a pin. What's the point of this drama? She screamed, theatrical fury replacing all social polish. It was meant for me, and what's mine is Chloe's. I wrapped the silk in my hands and began polishing the brooch. Is your name engraved on it? No? Then stop pretending. Eleanor blinked, genuinely puzzled. But the manager said it was made for your mother. Who else could that be but me? I didn't answer. My phone rang, and I put it to my ear. Hey, Mom, I'm on my way home now. Don't worry about coming to get me. I signed the receipt quickly, took my package, and started to leave. Maya Pierce. Eleanor grabbed my arm, her grip like iron. You called someone else, Mom? You found new parents? Why didn't the director tell me? Look at you, dressed like this. They can't be wealthy. Who wants a girl who's had 3 sets of parents? It's humiliating. Her tone shifted, something colder moving in. Cut them off immediately. Sever those ties. If you don't handle this properly, don't blame me if I have to take measures to put things right. I feigned a shiver, dripping with mock terror. Oh no, I'm shaking in my boots. Why don't you come with me and say that to their faces? Her expression turned crimson with fury. Your legal documents, were they transferred? When she'd first sent me away, she'd arranged for my guardianship to be officially handed over to the children's home, conveniently avoiding any awkward questions from Chloe. They were formally adopted, I said evenly. Of course, the records moved with me. At last, the realization hit her. Ungrateful child, she hissed. Your birth parents are alive and well. How could you allow yourself to be adopted? We only asked you to wait 8 years. Why couldn't you wait? Consumed by self-righteous anger, she barely noticed the manager's increasingly uncomfortable expressions as he watched the scene unfold. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Moments later, a man who looked every bit like a butler arrived. Follow her, Eleanor ordered. Deal with those country bumpkins. Pay them off. Get them out of the city. I never want to see them again. Chloe, still clutching her bruised cheek, glared at me. Mom, in the countryside, girls her age are already married. I wonder if she has children already. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, scrutinizing me as if I were a specimen. First, take her to a clinic for full examination. Those country folk are reckless. Who knows what diseases she might have? She shuddered. Actually, when the time comes, we'll just claim she's my husband's illegitimate daughter. Better than being a laughingstock. That was the final straw. First, they made me an orphan, now they wanted to label me illegitimate. You're insane, I muttered, feeling my vision tunnel as hypoglycemia kicked in. By the time a sugar tablet dissolved under my tongue and my head cleared, I noticed hands fumbling at my waistband. What on earth are you doing? I realized I was in a sterile, private room. The butler stood nearby, smug. By Mrs. Pierce's orders, he said, we need to confirm whether you've been living a degenerate lifestyle, whether your body is clean, and whether you've had children. 2 stern women, clearly in their 40s, stepped toward me. I grabbed the nearest metal chair and swung it with all my strength. After a cacophony of screams and curses, the room finally fell silent. What a revolting day. At least the brooch was safe. The beaten butler returned to the Pierce mansion, tearfully recounting my savage and violent behavior. Chloe pressed an ice pack to her face. "Mom," she murmured, "for her to resist so fiercely, does she have something to hide?" Eleanor immediately conjured up dramatic images from TV shows about rural girls having children at 16. She ground her teeth. "After Chloe's graduation party, I'll teach her some manners. She has no discipline, no proper upbringing at all." However, Eleanor soon realized she didn't have my contact information. She got my number from Mrs. Gable, but the moment she called, I hung up. All she knew was that I visited St. Jude's regularly. She even hired someone to watch the home, ready to call her the second I appeared. She never succeeded because I was traveling in Europe. But she did eventually run into my mother. Because of me, my parents had become major supporters of St. Jude's, visiting frequently and delivering supplies. That day, my father had a meeting, so my mother went alone. When Eleanor got word that Maya's mother was at the home, she dressed in her finest clothes, drove her best car, and arrived in a display of grandeur. She scrutinized my mother from head to toe. My mother's outfit was simple but high quality, the subtle elegance clear. Eleanor's gaze lingered on the emerald brooch pinned to her jacket. She dismissed it instantly as a cheap imitation. The woman in front of her reeked of ordinary middle-class sensibilities. Eleanor Pierce, of course, was superior. "Where is Maya?" Eleanor demanded. My mother, fully aware of who this woman was and already warned about her instability, let her polite smile fade. "Her name is Maya Monroe now," she said coolly. "And she's on vacation." There was a quiet authority in her tone. Eleanor's face darkened. Vacation? Or working to support her family? That's what people like you do, make children contribute financially, as soon as they can. I told her I was coming to bring her home. She shook her head in disdain. Once she returns to the Pierce family, she won't lift a finger. She's being foolish to waste her time. Reaching into her designer handbag, she produced a checkbook. $100,000. Considerate payment for raising Maya all these years. I'm sure you've never handled this much money. Take it. From now on, Maya has nothing to do with you. My mother, of course, did not accept the check. As the wife of one of the country's wealthiest men, she had never needed money. The conversation was proving Eleanor's instability to be a gross understatement. "Our family is not in a position where Maya needs to work," my mother said evenly. "She's traveling through Europe with her brother." Eleanor froze. "Europe? Brother?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You sent her abroad? She's only 18. Was it because of that cheap glass pin she gave you? Are you trying to ruin her? Which country? Tell me. I can call my friends abroad and bring her back before anyone in my circle finds out." In Eleanor's mind, her defiant but pure daughter was in danger, and she alone could save her. My mother's gaze drifted to the emerald brooch. Worth a small fortune, it easily outvalued all of Eleanor's jewelry combined. How could she assume that the family who adopted me was poor? The Pierce family, my mother murmured, more to herself than to Eleanor, truly lacks a sense of perspective. Eleanor misunderstood completely. "What do you know of high society?" "I have connections, even overseas. Connections someone like you could never dream of." My mother had no more patience. She turned and walked away, leaving Eleanor standing alone in the driveway, fuming. Back at the Pierce mansion, Eleanor was in a daze. The thought of her daughter suffering abroad was unbearable. She immediately sought out her husband, Richard Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries. "Richard, Maya's been sent overseas by those country bumpkins she calls parents. Do you have contacts abroad? We must find her. It's all her fault, being so stubborn and trusting the wrong people." Richard looked up from his papers, unimpressed. "Why would we look for her?" Eleanor's eyes widened in disbelief. "She's our biological daughter. Of course we have to find her." Richard shook his head. He knew his wife's logic lived in a separate universe. She had also managed to raise Chloe into a neurotic young woman. Thankfully, he had a son from another relationship. Otherwise, he wouldn't know who to hand the company to. "Eleanor," he said slowly, "I told you 8 years ago, when you chose Chloe and sent Maya away, that you were giving her up. The girl was bound to resent you. It's a miracle she doesn't hate you. Why are you obsessed with finding her now?" He leaned back, sighing. "I remember warning you then. I outlined all the consequences." A real bond requires time and care. Richard didn't particularly need another daughter. When Eleanor insisted on sending Maya to the children's home, he'd muttered a few half-hearted objections and then washed his hands of the matter entirely. Eleanor, naturally, couldn't understand his reasoning. I am her mother. She came from me. Why won't she accept me? Richard rubbed his temples. Because you abandoned her first. It's normal she doesn't accept you now. I don't understand why you regret it. You gave up your biological daughter for the one you raised, and now you're upset? That girl stopped seeing you as her mother long ago. Business pressures were already weighing him down. The Monroe family, real powerhouses, were back in town, reshaping the state's business landscape. Eleanor offered no relief. With a sigh, he decided to spend the night in his city apartment. From the hallway shadows, Chloe listened, her heart leaping. She stepped forward, eager to comfort her mother as usual. But this time, Eleanor pushed her gently aside. Tears sprang to Chloe's eyes. You only care about her, she whispered. Am I not your daughter too? Eleanor's frown deepened. Chloe dug her nails into her thigh, wincing as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. She leaned close, speaking softly. I understand. Blood is thicker than water. When she comes back, I promise I won't compete with her. I just want to be your loving, obedient daughter. Eleanor's heart tilted again. Chloe's meek devotion contrasted sharply with the independent, rebellious daughter who had chosen her adoptive parents over her biological ones. You've always been so understanding, Chloe, Eleanor murmured. Determined, she resolved to track me down. Once I saw the gap between my life and the one she promised, she was sure I'd return. Meanwhile, my mother's birthday was approaching. For the wife of a billionaire, that meant a grand affair. Seeing Richard Pierce's name on the guest list made me chuckle. Someone tried to flaunt their wealth in my face, my mother said, sipping tea with a composed smile. I felt it was only right to respond in kind. Her gaze met mine, unreadable. Tell me, sweetie, which matters more, the bond of birth or the bond of raising a child? A cold shiver ran down my back. I straightened immediately. You are, Mom. You're the most important. She gave a non-committal hum. Leo, sitting beside me, doubled over laughing. What a little suck-up. I playfully punched his arm. My place in this family felt like a miracle. It had all begun because Leo, my brother, had wanted a sister. My parents, not desiring another child themselves, finally relented and took him to the state's largest children's home to pick one out. There were prettier girls, more accomplished girls, but he chose me. That day, a bully had deliberately knocked my lunch out of my hands, mocking my abandonment. Growing up in the mountains, I knew weakness invited cruelty. I ambushed him, pinned him down, and forced him to call me Daddy. Afterward, I noticed a boy, unlike the others, staring at me with wide, shining eyes. You're different, he said. Want to be my sister? I assumed he was joking, but soon I was introduced to his parents, the Monroes. They looked conflicted. My file clearly showed my biological parents were alive. The director called Eleanor and Richard. Richard's response was cold and final. Her legal file is with the home. What more do you need to understand? And Leo, my would-be brother, grinned. A sister you have to fight for is the best kind of sister. And so, I was adopted. A new mother, a new father, a new brother. I had thought I was being brought in only as a playmate for Leo. I never imagined they would truly treat me as their own daughter. I received everything he did, without exception. Once, I asked Leo why he had chosen me. He looked at me seriously. When you were fighting that bully, it looked like you were trying not to cry. That was the bravest thing I'd ever seen. That day, I finally allowed myself to cry, sobbing into my brother's arms. He laughed, teasing me for looking like a sad frog, which only made me hit him through my tears. With them, I learned what a real family felt like. Come on, Leo said, pulling me back to the present. The party's starting. He offered his arm. I tucked away the turbulent memories, looped my arm through his, and we joined our parents, moving gracefully through the crowd and greeting friends and business associates. Through it all, I could feel someone's eyes on me, sharp and unrelenting. When I turned, I saw Eleanor Pierce staring as if she had just seen a ghost. Beside her, Richard wore an expression that was strangely proud, almost possessive. It felt like standing in front of a pack of wolves. Maya, sweetheart, are you getting tired? My mother asked, her hand warm on mine. I forced my attention back to her, ignoring the Pierce's gaze. My instincts were already screaming for distance. Eleanor's shock was almost comical. She couldn't wrap her head around it. I'd been adopted by the Monroes. Did you see the brooch Mrs. Monroe's wearing? Someone nearby whispered. Her daughter bought it for her in New York. The gem alone is worth over 10 million. I heard she's adopted, another voice replied, but they treat her exactly like their own. More than that, she's already got shares in the family company. Her dividends alone could buy half this ballroom. At the edge of the room, Chloe stood frozen. Envy radiated from her like poison. She had schemed to drive me out of the Pierce family, only to watch me be embraced by the Monroes, a family far wealthier and more powerful than her own. It should have been her, she thought. The money, the status, the spotlight, everything she had wanted now belonged to me. The air inside grew too thick to breathe. I slipped onto the terrace, hoping for a moment of quiet. Footsteps followed. Eleanor appeared, her face unreadable. The arrogance from earlier was gone. I didn't realize you were adopted by the Monroes, she began, her tone softer than before. But Maya, no matter what they give you, you're not truly one of them. There's always a gap. I'm your real mother. My love for you is. I cut her off with a laugh. Real? You abandoned me, Mrs. Pierce. If blood matters so much, why do you worship your adopted daughter like a trophy? You can't have it both ways. Her eyes brightened as if she had just made up her mind. You're only saying that because of Chloe. She's grown now. She can leave tomorrow. We'll hold a party. Tell everyone you're my only daughter, and… She reached for me. Do you think I'm a pet you can call back whenever you feel lonely? I asked coldly. Behind her, Chloe appeared, pale and shaking. When you brought me back, you promised love and kindness, I said. It lasted less than a day. Now that I've found a real family, you suddenly want to play mother again? You're giving yourself too much credit. Tears welled in her eyes, but before she could answer, someone stepped between us. Leo. He placed a hand on my shoulder before turning to Eleanor, his expression cold as stone. Are you causing trouble? His voice was dangerously calm. This girl is my sister. I raised her, protected her, and she belongs with us. He took a step forward. Tell me, Mrs. Pierce, is your family tired of being in business? That was enough to make her flinch. I'm her biological mother, she shouted. You took her illegally. Leo let out a sharp laugh. Really? Is that what your husband thinks too? Richard quickly stepped in, grabbing her arm. Eleanor, enough. But she kept going, voice rising. I didn't even know she was adopted. You. The crack of Richard's hand against her cheek silenced her. I knew, he said coldly. And Chloe knew too. Eleanor's face went blank. Chloe hid everything from you, Richard continued. Every gift you sent, every message from the orphanage. You barely visited anyway. You're nothing but a stranger to her now, Eleanor. Stop embarrassing yourself. Eleanor looked between us, her world collapsing. She began to cry, then laugh, the sound breaking apart in the night air. I was wrong, she whispered. Maya, I was so wrong. Leo signaled to security, and the Pierces were escorted out. Once they were gone, Leo turned to me, serious. So, tell me, nature or nurture? I glared at him. You're impossible. Still means nurture wins, he teased. Back at their mansion, the Pierce family fell apart. Eleanor spiraled, blaming everyone. Richard, done with her hysteria, brought home his mistress and their son. Eleanor finally snapped. In a fit of rage during another argument, she grabbed the steering wheel, sending them both to the hospital. Chloe, spoiled and unprepared, couldn't handle the company. Pierce Industries crumbled within months, and Leo bought it for pennies. Out of mercy, he left them a small factory somewhere forgotten. Now, Richard lives surrounded by chaos, his wife, his mistress, his legitimate and illegitimate children, all under one roof. Feeling sorry for them? Leo asked, handing me a platinum card. Buy yourself something ridiculous. I smiled faintly, taking it. I don't feel anything for them. They were strangers long before I ever knew their names. Eleanor wasn't mourning a daughter, I realized. She was just furious that something she once owned had slipped from her control. I exhaled, letting that thought fade. I had no reason to look back. I finally had what mattered most, a real family, one I chose, and one that chose me.